This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Joining us today is Jason Brewer, the Executive Chairman at Neo Energy Metals. Thank you, Jason, for your time. How are you?
I'm very good, Mark. Very, very good today, actually.
Excellent. Well, it's good to be catching up. I have put out, it's a bit last minute, but I've asked if any questions are coming in. So if they do come in during this interview, I will put them to you. But we're just going to get a catch up, really, first of all, on how things are accelerating at Neo here, because an announcement only last week, you've accelerated basically, or it's happened quicker than you originally anticipated. The due diligence, completing of that due diligence and the legals for the transactions. So things are really motoring on here. How are things feeling from your point of view at Neo?
Yeah, very good. Look, this acquisition of the Beisa North, Beisa South uranium gold projects, I guess we should be calling them now, has really proceeded very, very smoothly. Probably one of the smoothest acquisitions, which I think I've done in the past several years. So we were able to finish the formal sign-off of the legal, technical and financial due diligence well ahead of schedule. And that's really put us in a very good footing to complete the formal acquisition documentation ahead of schedule as well, and push ahead on the regulatory approvals in South Africa. So it's going very well. Credit to the guys in South Africa, not just our team on the ground, but the advisors we're working with as well.
Okay, good. And I mean, just on the transaction there, so when do you expect that to be really, signed, sealed and delivered?
Look, within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
To complete an acquisition of this magnitude, remember this is a big project, a lot of historical work which has been done on it, a big resource, both in terms of uranium and gold. But from start to finish, done within a matter of months, I think it's good going.
Okay, good. And the funding then that's obviously coming as part of this will cover both of the acquisitions, will it?
Yeah, as we've made clear to the market, this is the first of two acquisitions that Neo's progressing, basically to position itself as what we think we're going to become in the next year or two, set up a major uranium company. We've got a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but we're confident we'll get there. So Beisa North and Beisa South is the first one which we've announced. It was actually supposed to be the second one we announced, but it proceeded very well, obviously. But the financing, which I know Sean, our CEO, talked of a couple of weeks ago with you, Mark, that funding now is covering both the first and second acquisitions we're doing. And that's moving ahead very well, both with our preferred partner, which is obviously Quinton's group, AUO. But as you can imagine, a project of this magnitude has certainly caught the attention of a lot of other parties that have come late in the game, but are being very competitive in the sort of terms that they're talking as well.
Okay. Can you shed any light on who these sort of other parties are, the interest that's come in?
Look, you wouldn't be surprised to learn that given the demand of uranium in the market there, Neo was one of those companies which probably wasn't on the radar screen of many of the traders or many of the refiners, the end users. But this acquisition and the magnitude of this acquisition in terms of resources and its location, remember, this is in the heart of South Africa's uranium producing region, where they've been producing uranium there as a byproduct largely from the gold mining for over 70 continuous years. Okay, so there's a very strong history of it. But for many of those kind of trading groups that trade in uranium, many of the end users there, they wouldn't have had us on their watch list. They wouldn't have had us on a list of, hang on, this is someone we should be talking to. But when we announced this transaction a number of weeks ago, the phone's been ringing quite hot, and there's a lot of emails coming through. There's been a lot of conference calls, a lot of video calls. So a lot of those European, North American groups where uranium is such a strategic commodity now, it's no surprise where that interest has come from.
Okay, good. Well, I can see a couple of questions have come in, so let's fire away, Jason. First of all, on the AOU funding, is there any clarity on when this might get released? Quinton admitted it had taken longer than anticipated, but gave the impression it was pretty much over the line now. So any light you can shed on when that would be really, becoming fully unlocked?
Look, in regards to Neo and our kind of funding requirements, we require that funding over the course of the final quarter of this year in order to do the financial settlement of this transaction. And it's well on track to meet that requirement. So that's why I'm very comfortable. As I've said, they are, head and shoulders, they're our preferred partner. Quinton is a quality guy. His success, you've spoken to him, Mark. He's infectious in terms of, dealing with him. You just can't help but kind of feel lifted by his energy. So, he's been very supportive of Neo from the outset, and we look forward to pushing ahead with him.
Okay, good. Another question. This is on the acquisition. Is the second acquisition, is it all done and ready, just waiting to announce, or is it sort of linked to the funding? I know you've sort of talked, it covers both, but in terms of when it can, is it sort of ready to be announced effectively, or is there some more work to be done?
We've just got again, it's a little bit different to the Beisa North, Beisa South acquisitions, where we announced it based upon the binding term sheet, binding heads of agreement that we had there with Sunshine Mineral Reserves. Here we've moved straight into formal documentation, formal acquisition documentation, which is what we're in the phase of doing now with Sunshine. So when that documentation is signed, and clearly we've had lawyers in South Africa and in London working on it pretty fast, once that's signed, then we will be announcing them.
Okay, good. Drilling at Henkrys, has it started? If not, then when?
It's going to start in the current quarter, the upcoming quarter, I should say. So the finalisation of those drill tenders, that's something Sean's been working on. There's a lot of samples which will come out of that. Remember, that's a 6,000 metre program, minimum 6,000 metre program. We are looking at a potential expansion there to our footprint around Henkrys, which we may look to announce as well before the end of the quarter. But there's a lot of work, not just in terms of the drilling, but in terms of the sampling. The drilling is very different here. It's not your diamond core drilling, because the uranium, as people that know about Henkrys will know, it's hosted in sand. So it's a different style of drilling, and there's not that many drill rigs or drill companies that can do that. So it's quite a specialist job. Sean's working through that. We'll be ready to go, drilling, sampling done, and hopefully updated resource statement out before the end of the year.
Okay, good. Another question I can see, maybe the last one on Neo, is the key to unlocking the Beisa resource in infrastructure acquisition?
Yeah, we're clearly looking at, it's all in good having resources in the ground, and Neo's stands out probably above a lot of juniors at the moment, given the resources that it has in the ground. Just at Beisa North and South, you've got 90 million pounds of uranium and over 4 million ounces of gold. So a lot of resources in the ground. But there's a lot of companies that can talk resources in the ground and value in the ground. It's how you get it out of there. And one of the great assets that Neo will be able to tap into is that infrastructure in and around that region, in the Beisa Basin there. I would say 70 years of continuous uranium production. So it's not, we're not building something in the middle of the desert here, and we've got to build, spend a significant portion on CapEx, on power lines, on roads, on water. That's all there. But on top of that, it's looking at other infrastructure in and around that area, how you can actually start to access the underground resources, how you can actually start to process them. So that's where we're looking at unlocking value very quickly.
Okay. TSF, a tailings storage facility. Are Neo looking at uranium TSF in the area to process?
Yeah, there's a lot of tailings there. Most of them have been tied up already in terms of reprocessing of that. A lot of those tailings have been reprocessed partly because of the gold content, which is obviously associated with the gold. The gold and the uranium are associated together, certainly in the background. So we're looking at the opportunities there. Of course we are. It's all about how we maximize returns.
Okay. Final question on Neo. Once unlocked, how much work or lead times are required to get into production?
So, look, we will commence the underground development within 6 to 12 months.
Okay. Good. And I do have to throw in a question on Marula. Everyone's quite keen. The big question, you know what the question is, when is the suspension going to be lifted?
Yeah, look, it's I think for Marula shareholders seeing what's happened with NEO, you know, the massive share price increase, the volume, the general market interest must be frustrating as hell because Marula's been suspended for the past 2 months. And at the same time, Marula's put out some quite amazing news. Let's not kid ourselves, you know, on the manganese, on the cobalt, on the expansion there at Blesberg at NCLT, the moving of the Tomra unit to site. There's been some amazing news, but people haven't been able to trade. They haven't been able to buy. So, and part of that is down to the fact that we have not been able to get those audited accounts released. And we've been ready to get them out for the past week. We are there with our auditors. There's no issues with those audited accounts. It is just the finalization and getting them out. So as to when, look, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. Putting out, look, we were expecting this time last week, Mark, to be honest, the board were expecting to have released those accounts. So I am hopeful that they will be out before the end of this week. Okay. Audit fees have been paid. We've gone through everything. We had the final audit meeting. Clearly, there's going to be another final audit meeting once everything's done here. But yeah, those accounts are very clean sign off on that. There's clearly been a lot happened post balance sheet event date, okay, which has an impact on our ability to operating as a going concern going forward. The manganese production, for instance, and sales, what's happening at Blesberg. So that all influences the final sign off there, but it's all positive. Let's be honest, it's all very positive. So yeah, end of this week. If not, I'll run naked around the streets of Nairobi.
Oh, wouldn't we all love to see that? Well, thank you very much, Jason Brewer, the Executive Chairman of NEO Energy Metals.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.